Welcome to Sensible Transfers, a video series in which we make transfer suggestions that suit the style of the club that we're discussing. If you're unfamiliar with the rules or methodology, you can watch our Sensible Transfers rules video as linked below. Today's club is Manchester United. Manchester United's recent transfer business is a curious mix. While Harry Maguire, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Daniel James are qualified successes, even when factoring in cost, players like Fred, Diogo Dalot, Nemanja Matic and Alexis Sanchez have failed to deliver for various reasons, although Fred has improved in recent months. Romelu Lukaku was sold for a loss and is now doing brilliantly in Serie A as part of a fairly classic two-man striking team. Although his sale is perhaps instructive of Solskjaer's preferred approach, given the club's recent dotted history in the transfer market, inferring a sensible strategy in their movements isn't always the easiest jump to make. Overseen by Ed Woodward, Manchester United have been largely hit and miss in the market. Prior to Solskjaer's arrival, the club was clearly bereft of a strategy that addressed weaknesses in the squad or engaged in much long-term planning. How much longer the manager is given to implement his ideas remains to be seen. So with that in mind, more than anything, United need a proper director of football. Look at Michael Edwards at Liverpool, Michael Zorc at Dortmund, Stuart Webber at Norwich City, Ralf Rangnick at RB Leipzig or Monchi at Sevilla. These figures set strategy, oversee recruitment, align a manager with a desired philosophy, all the things that United seem to lack. However, this video is about players. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's United is actually not performing that badly overall. Fifth in the table at the time of writing, they're second for expected goals against this season, a measure of the quality of chances a team give to their opposition. And despite the team's strikers playing well, it's in attack creation where they have issues. Solskjaer's side tend to play a fairly organised 4-2-3-1 with an industrious double pivot who lack a bit of creativity. The fullbacks will push high where possible, and Luke Shaw has been a reasonable progressor of the ball on the left before being succeeded recently by prospect Brandon Williams due to injury. But generally, the game plan seems to use whoever is playing in the 10 position, often Jesse Lingard this season and sometimes Andres Pereira, to create disruption in the opposition's defensive structure and then get the ball quickly to Marcus Rashford, Daniel James or Anthony Martial to create take-on opportunities. United are dangerous on the counter. Solskjaer's best results have come by pinning back opposition-wide defenders and hitting teams on the break. They have plenty of pace to use in behind teams, but against deep-sitting, organised opposition, they struggle. With Paul Pogba absent for most of the season through injury, United have found it hard to break teams down, and they lack a passer who can progress the ball into dangerous areas and construct moves that unlock defences. This is clearly United's greatest need. And to address it, we've looked for players 27 or under who've racked up more than 700 minutes so that there's a reasonable data set and each player is either entering their peak or is still a prospect. It's always trickier mid-season, so we've adjusted minutes played down from our summer benchmark. These players could be useful pickups for January, but they should also be considered as longer-term options as well. Now, assuming that Solskjaer sticks with his 4-2-3-1, this player could either be a deep playmaker or a 10. A kind of wide playmaker, think Koke at Atletico Madrid, wouldn't fit the system. While Lingard has failed to register a goal or assist in the league in 2019, he is still an intelligent player whose movement is of benefit to the team, as seen against Spurs, for example. United would probably benefit more from a progressive passer deeper, but we looked at defensive, central and attacking midfielders for this section. While obviously a well-rounded midfielder is best, the key metrics under consideration are deep completed passes, passes that find a teammate within 25 yards of goal, and passes to the penalty area per 90. We've also looked at progressive passes as a good indicator of moving the ball forwards, passes into the final third, and smart passes, which Y-Scout slightly subjectively define as a pass that is cutting the lines and winning some advantage for teammates. Exactly the sort of pass that United seem to lack. Now, of course, there are some exciting players who would fit this mould, but for one reason or another are probably unrealistic. Martin Ødegaard is having a stellar season with Real Sociedad on loan from Real Madrid, but is unlikely to be available. Hakim Ziyech is more of a right winger, though could probably play centrally, but is not a natural fit. Leonardo Fernandez, a 22-year-old Uruguayan at Toluca on loan from Tigres UANL, has only just joined Toluca and would probably not get a work permit, but is a really interesting prospect in exactly this sort of mould. One player outside of Europe that should definitely be considered is Bruno Guimaraes of Atlético Paranaense. Only 22, he's yet to play for the Brazilian national side, but according to Transfermarkt has joint Brazilian and Spanish nationality. He's had 1 league assist, but his passing numbers are superb. 2.6 smart passes, 11.3 final third passes, 3.5 passes to the penalty area, 2.1 deep completed passes, and 9.2 progressive passes, all per 90. He's not the most robust player defensively, but he has a nice range of passing and could be worth a look. Now, he'd likely not solve United's problems in the short term though. We've gone, therefore, for 2 clear options, one as a deeper creator and one as more of a 10. Lazio's Luis Alberto is having a stellar season at Simeone Inzaghi's Lazio. Lazio also feature a player previously linked with United, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, another excellent midfielder who shows up very well in these metrics but would cost considerably more. 27-year-old Luis Alberto, who was one of Liverpool's transfer committee acquisitions before leaving for Lazio in 2016, has probably the best all-round deep creative numbers in Europe's top 5 leagues this season. 0.55 assists per 90, 3.1 smart passes, 11 final third passes, 4.3 passes to the penalty area, 3.5 deep completed passes, and 10.5 progressive passes, all per 90. Playing in a 3-5-2 with Lucas Leiva usually shielding behind Alberto and Milinkovic-Savic, the Spanish midfielder doesn't have to worry too much about his defensive duties, although he's still serviceable in this regard. But his great strength is his passing, which is elegant, inventive, and would provide exactly the sort of go-forwards that United need from midfield. He's valued at 40 million euros according to Transfermarkt, but he'd cost more. Creativity doesn't come cheap. Prior to our next pick, it's worth mentioning that at the time of writing, Bruno Fernandes is heavily linked with a move to Manchester United, but if it's going to happen, it hasn't happened yet. With that in mind, the other player worth considering is Roma's Lorenzo Pellegrini. He plays more as a 10 in Roma's 4-2-3-1 under Paulo Fonseca, but that's ahead of a fairly workmanlike double pivot, much as would be found at United. He's managed 0.49 assists per 90, 2.1 smart passes, 6.4 final third passes, lower because he plays further up the pitch, 5.1 passes to the penalty area, 2.6 deep completed passes, and 6.7 progressive passes, all per 90. He's adept at finding space between opposition lines, and whether he's playing as a traditional string-pulling 10 or a roaming advanced playmaker, he has superb vision and the technical ability to thrive in transitions, seeing and executing defense-splitting passes under pressure. He's only scored once this season, but he times his runs well, and could be a goal threat from a deeper starting position. Again, he's valued at 40 million euros according to Transfermarkt, and again, this would be higher. He's only 23 and has a higher ceiling than Luis Alberto, having played in Serie A consistently since 2015-16. But if United want more of a 10 than a deeper creator, he would be an excellent acquisition. Despite offering Ashley Young a contract extension, Luke Shaw looking reasonable in fits and starts, but perennially injured and generally far from living up to expectations, and Brandon Williams coming through the ranks impressively, Manchester United should also probably look for a long-term left-back option. Someone who is defensively capable but also creates through progressive passes and deep completions makes sense. And United can afford to get someone more attacking, as Wan-Bissaka adds balance by being more defensively minded on the right. Left-back, though, is a tricky position to fill. 3 of the best young left-backs in Europe, Pervis Estupiñán at Osasuna, Luca Pellegrini at Cagliari, and Sergio Reguilón at Sevilla, are all on loan from parent clubs, unlikely to want to sell them. Porto's Alex Telles has good assist numbers, but he's 27, likely very expensive, and playing for a dominant Porto side. Augsburg's Philipp Max and Aaron Martin at Mainz are worth considering, but we found 2 players we think United could look at more closely. Angers' Rayan Aït-Nouri is an intriguing prospect at only 18. Angers' recruitment is justifiably lauded, and Aït-Nouri is a French youth international who came out of the Paris area like many other excellent prospects, before being signed by Angers in 2018. He's got 0.14 assists per 90, 4.5 final third passes, 1.9 deep completed passes or crosses, and 9.8 progressive passes, all per 90. He's dynamic, with 4.3 dribbles and 1.8 progressive runs per 90, intelligent on the ball, and makes 8 successful defensive actions per 90. Valued at 12 million euros, Aït-Nouri is probably a risk as far as immediate first-team action is concerned, particularly with Brandon Williams impressing, but he should certainly be considered one of the brightest left-back prospects in Europe. RC Strasbourg's Anthony Catchy is a little older, 22, and he has 4 assists this season in Liga. We mentioned him in passing in the Arsenal sensible transfers video, but United have a greater need in this position, so we're recommending him more firmly here. He's played 730 minutes so far this season, so at the bottom end of what we'd like to look at, but in that smallish sample size, he's managed 11.1 final third passes, 3.8 passes to the penalty area, 2.8 deep completed crosses or passes, all per 90. He's also managed 15.8 progressive passes per 90, the best of any left-back we looked at in Europe's top 5 leagues. He gets the ball forwards, and he does so with a good range of clipped passes down the line, deeper crossing, and inventive through passes. He's essentially two-footed and could play on the right as well as the left, though the latter is where he's playing for RC Strasbourg. He's also quick, tenacious in defence, and always looking to move the ball on after he's won it back. He looks like a future starter for a top European side, confident, physically capable, and technically proficient. And here is how our team could line up.